Welcome to Press, a conversation series highlighting the intersection of communications and business. I'm your host, Chris Cook. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Press. Joining me today is Sean Rossall. Sean is the CEO and managing partner of R.W. Jones Agency. It's a full-service PR firm working exclusively with institutions of higher education. Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chris, and I'm glad I can get the chance to talk with you today.
That's good to see you a little bit face-to-face. I mean, we've done some phone calls here and there, but somewhat face-to-face, virtually face-to-face, but that's the new life.
Yeah, it's been a wild 18 months. Hard to imagine it's actually been 18 months, but yeah, it's a different day and age in communications, that's for sure.
Well, especially we kind of wonder when all this, I don't know that everything will be the same, go back to the way it was after, but it's going to be interesting to see how this falls out in communication, especially since we do so much face-to-face.
Yeah, I mean, it's had, working exclusively in the education space with clients all over the country. So I'm in Los Angeles area, and, we've got clients everywhere from, upstate New York to the South to California, and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
It's radically changed the way our business has worked. I mean, I haven't been anywhere on a plane in 18 months, maybe a little bit less than 18 months, but I was taking time off before. But, at least since last January, I haven't gone anywhere. And what I'll tell you is coming out of this, our hope is actually not to go back to the way we used to travel. So I was traveling something like, 100 days a year. Which is just really, really, brutal to do. Right. I know that, for many, business travel seems, really great. And it is for a minute. But after about 100, after about day 20 in a year, you're sort of like, okay, I've had enough of this. And, frankly, I think it will mean that clients will have more to invest in comms and, PR firms because they won't have to worry about paying the travel. We've actually found that we've had greater success with clients over the last, year in some ways than we even had when we were going onto campus.
Well, that's so that kind of leads to the next question. Does that change if you do these things virtually? And I think I even look at broadcast, at basketball broadcast, for example. Right now in the season, we're seeing games broadcast from the living rooms of the announcers. Or maybe makeshift studios, and it's working. You really don't know the difference. But when you look at what you guys do, and it sounds like you're right from a financial standpoint, kind of frees that up a little bit to do some other things. Do you feel like you might miss anything face to face, or is virtual really the same thing? Do you see it as the same thing?
So it's not the same thing. There's definitely something that's missed there. And I do expect we'll go back to some travel. But, with a lot of our clients where we're doing national media relations and strategic communications, we usually would do like a, annual campus visit where we'd meet with faculty, meet with deans, meet with presidents. I think some of that will stay, but I think it might be now every 2 years, every 18 months. I think our need to go to campus is going to change a bit. I mean, it'll come back, but, I would expect that when it comes back, it's probably 10%, 15, 20% of what it was, which is fine by me. I've got 2 young kids, so I'm plenty happy not to feel like I need to be on the road. And we were going that way anyways, but frankly, I think it will change. But as much as it changes, things will stay the same. So getting to know clients, building those relationships, conferences, things like that will go back to in person. And there's still a huge value that we will, as an agency place on that, because there is something to be said about the relationship that, we as consulting partners to clients have that has to be built in person, right? It has to be built on mutual trust. And sometimes the best way to do that is by breaking bread.
And it really is interesting to see how this has almost been, as we've all managed. I mean, everybody, COVID has touched everybody and has been affected in some way or another. But it's interesting to see, we've also been able to use it as a lab for things like that, how we do new ways of communication online. I want to get into your work during COVID. like many industries, higher education was almost a seismic impact on when this came about. And I remember, I want to say the first memo we sent out was in January of last year, kind of at that first start of it. And then we just kind of kept paying attention to it. And all of a sudden in March, it just mushroomed there at the end of February. When did you guys recognize for all of your clients that, hey, this is big. We need to prepare for everyone right now here for the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks because we're going to have to jump in and talk to them?
Yeah, so we actually got a call from a school who I won't name in Ohio that was probably among the first to have suspected cases. I remember at the time helping them develop materials, based on what we knew about the virus at that point in time. And this was probably early January, maybe February, but I actually think it was probably more January timeframe. I'm trying to think of it even, I don't think it went back to December, but definitely January. And, at the time I remember helping write materials that said, look, part of the way that this spreads is through very close contact, which now we know to not be the case. But at the time that was the conversation, right? That it was very isolated pockets of spread. And I think it was in that moment that we started to realize how significant this was going to be. So we started to develop and deploy resources for clients pretty quickly. So we did a number of things over the course of the virus's progression. We started with sort of a daily roundup of news, information, thoughts, and sort of perspectives that clients can use in planning. I think one of our campuses, I want to say it was Amherst, was one of the first colleges in the country to say, hey, we're shutting the place down. So we were pretty early on the tail in terms of like clients getting ready to close campuses. And we, helped a number of others close campuses, as you might imagine. So we had a lot of that knowledge as we went through it. We kept that daily sort of update and memo up about, closing procedures, closing, notes, how people are approaching it, procedures, and then also, that turned into a reopening procedures. Probably for about 6 months, I think we kept that up, every day, every other day sort of thing. But so clients had it. We also launched a series of webinars to talk about what we were seeing, how people were coping. And we actually also engaged and brought on to the team for a period of time an epidemiologist who was able to help advise clients, talk about protocols, talk about what they were seeing in higher ed, and sort of cut through a lot of the science, especially sort of at the middle part of this, the part right as people were thinking about how they were going to reopen. It was important for us to have somebody who could help us cut through the science. So we developed a specific resource for clients just about what the science was saying, how to make decisions based on it. But, we knew pretty early on it was going to be a big deal. I think it's lasted longer than any of us expected. And that's only because I think we were naive to think it was going to be quicker than it was. But, I think it was a good thing.
How did you initiate contact with your clients? I mean, throughout, did you leave it up to your client to reach out and say, we need this? Or were you guys proactive in maybe weekly, daily, even outreaches?
Yeah. So our agency doesn't really believe in being reactive. So we were reaching out to clients and even non-clients. I mean, I think I probably reached out to you several times early on there, Chris, and was like, hey, look, here's some resources. You probably will need them eventually. Take a look. Happy to answer questions. But we were talking to clients on a daily basis, trying to get with them before they knew what they would need and make sure that we were giving them the playbook to say, here's what you're going to need. Let's start working on it now. That was really important to us. It's really important to us in our business generally. So that's how we've approached it, is how do we get them what they need before they need it?
Every situation when you deal with a client, whether they're dealing with a crisis, which this was, and dealing with something that's unprecedented, you treat every case differently, but at the same time, we're all in the same boat, dealing with the same thing. We may have subtle different approaches that we take as institutions, but were there some aspects of planning that you could apply across the board to your clients to maybe save some of that time, or did you treat everyone individually and listen to each one's needs?
So we treated everyone individually and listened to their needs. So we got really sort of up to speed on a variety of statewide health recommendations. Since we have clients in New York, we have clients in New Orleans, we have clients in Texas, clients in California. Like, there was a whole paradigm of not only public health recommendations, but political recommendations that we had to sort of take into account as we were helping clients think about this stuff. But in the same vein, there was also a core amount of information that we could draw on to say, hey, look, this we know is best practice. We know this is working. We know this testing protocol is working as clients are reopening. We know what the gold standard is. We know what's not a gold standard. We know, what works in terms of dashboards, what doesn't work in terms of dashboards. So we were able to provide context for that. And that we're fortunate in that regard, working only in education, and predominantly that's higher ed, right? And I would say 98% of our clients are colleges and universities. We get to be so specialized. I don't have to think about, whereas a general firm might be thinking about, okay, what does my manufacturing client need versus what does my corporate law firm client need? I get to think about, on a day in and day out basis, what does higher ed need? What does education need? What are those skills and tools that we can bring to the table? So we had stuff we could draw from, but we really try to approach each client individually because the needs truly are different, right? Whether it's a residential liberal arts college like, Union in upstate New York, or a large, R1 AAU school like the University of Utah, and the David Eccles School there. We really needed to sort of have that base to draw from, but recognize that we had to adapt it with each client.
And I would imagine most universities, the ones that did it right, and I would assume everyone did it this way, relied on local and state health officials, relied on medical experts and scientists to help drive those decisions. I know you guys kept up a lot of that. You mentioned having an epidemiologist on board throughout this. How much did you have to deal with, though, weeding through the disinformation that was out there? And I know disinformation is in kind of comes in two forms: true disinformation and what someone perceives as disinformation. How did you guys weed through that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was helpful to have an epidemiologist we could call on to say, hey, what's real, what's not real. Also, just the sheer volume of information that was coming at us meant we had to get really good at sort of saying, this is good, this is, bunk. Let's sort of look ahead and think about what really makes sense. And frankly, we also had to be willing to admit when we were wrong. So, I think a lot of folks got things right. I think a lot of folks got things wrong. We certainly got some things right. We certainly likely got some things wrong. And helping our clients create within their communities the understanding and grace to allow folks to get it wrong in this case was really important, because the course of the virus was evolving. What it meant, how it spread, what we knew about it just changed so rapidly, especially in the first 8 months, 6 months, really. It was like one day it was this, one day it was that. And so our job was really to help clients think about how, when we get something not quite right, do we go back and make sure we get it right? Because there's really, in this sort of novel type of a case, there's no fault in getting it wrong. The fault is when you continue doubling down on wrong information. So it was really a matter of helping clients understand and think through how to be comfortable when they got something wrong.
Well, it certainly forced us all to think on our feet, maybe even more quickly than we had in the past. So it's like, as we mentioned a while ago, is a good challenge in a lot of ways of also learning and how to adapt to something like this, and a lot of lessons that we can apply moving forward. It seems like that way with you guys as well. I want to pivot real quick and touch on your background.
Sure.
As a CEO and managing partner, I noticed in your bio you have bachelor's degrees in history and politics, and master's in PR from USC Annenberg School of Communication. But when you started out in politics and history, was law or politics what you were thinking about?
Well, so yeah, I'd always thought about law, but I also always thought about sort of political campaign work. And advertising and communication. So When I went to graduate school, I quickly got an internship at a firm called Sorrell Associates. I was there for like a year. Got kind of burnt out. I had done a lot of political work in college. Decided I wanted to do corporate entertainment. I did that for a few years, and then decided I wanted to come back to politics. And so I did, and I ended up actually coming back to the firm where I started interning to run their public relations side of the house. Built a relatively successful public relations firm at that firm, which was more of a public affairs firm. So they did a lot of lobbying, a lot of, legislative work. I was building all of the communications infrastructure there. And a lot of that work was education work, working with Los Angeles Unified School District, working with a variety of colleges. That's how I got to know my business partner, Scott Williard, was through some sort of work we did together and some organizations we were both a part of. And frankly, I just was more excited about the education work, and really more excited about being able to focus on one area that I was passionate about, as opposed to, the firm I'd been at for much of my career, Sorrell, which, probably about 7 years in total. I was there. I'll tell you, it was good work. It was a great learning experience, but they do so much different stuff that to me, it was really hard to be a jack of all trades, master of none. Right. So while I would like to think I'm a master of the communications trade, I wanted to go really deep and think about clients' needs and really become a partner as opposed to sort of a transient part of their life. And I find that most generalist firms, you're kind of a transient part of the life of your clients. I mean, they might see you as a partner, they might not. At the firm, at my firm now, I really like to think that clients see us as partners. I mean, we have an average tenure for our clients of 8 to 9 years. Many of our clients we've had for 30, 35 years. We don't have that churn that we had when I've been at other agencies. And it's because we are specialists and we do go deep and they know what they're getting with us and they see us as partners. They don't see us as sort of a vendor, if you will.
Well, Sean, we've known each other for a few years now, and I've been able to, we've talked shop several times.
Of course, yeah.
Those opportunities, visited at conferences, but you guys do it well. You do it as well as anybody, and I thank you for taking some time to visit with me here today.
Absolutely, glad to do it, and happy to talk to any of your students who are thinking about going into PR. They are welcome to reach out at any time. We're always looking for good interns, and we pay.
I will certainly share that. They're always looking for paid internships.
Fantastic.
All right,
well, thank
thanks,
you, Chris.
Sean. Okay, bye.